There are moments on talent shows that the world never forgets, moments that break barriers, defy expectations, and remind us what true talent really looks like. Tonight's story is one of those rare, once-in-a-lifetime performances that left everyone, even the toughest judge, Simon Cowell, in tears. It's the story of a small Filipino boy, barely 13 years old, who stepped onto the Ireland's Got Talent stage with trembling hands and a voice that carried the soul of Elvis Presley himself. But no one, not even the judges, expected what was about to happen next. Before we begin, welcome to our channel where we share stories that touch your heart, inspire your soul, and remind you that miracles still happen when you least expect them. So sit back, make sure your heart is ready, because this is one performance you'll remember forever. It was a cold evening in Dublin. The theater was buzzing with excitement as Ireland's Got Talent was in full swing. The judges sat comfortably behind their desks, Michelle Visage with her sparkling outfit, Lewis Walsh looking curious as always, Denise Van Outen smiling warmly, and of course, the one and only Simon Cowell, known for his sharp comments and high standards. The next contestant was introduced simply as Caleb from the Philippines. The crowd quieted as a young boy walked nervously onto the stage. He was small, thin, and wearing an oversized denim jacket that looked a little worn but clean. His hair was neatly combed, his sneakers slightly old, and his eyes, full of both fear and hope, scanned the room as if searching for one friendly face. Simon leaned forward slightly. "Hello there," he said in his familiar calm but curious tone. "What's your name, and how old are you?" The boy took a deep breath, clutching the microphone tightly. "My name is Caleb, sir, I'm 13 years old." His voice was soft, uncertain, but polite. "And where are you from?" Denise asked kindly. "I'm from the Philippines, but I live here in Ireland now with my mom," he said shyly, smiling nervously as a few people in the audience clapped. Michelle smiled warmly. "Ah, that's lovely. And what are you going to sing for us tonight?" Caleb hesitated for a second, then said, "I'll sing Can't Help Falling in Love by Elvis Presley." There was a little murmur in the audience, some surprised, some intrigued. It wasn't an easy song, especially for a child. Simon raised an eyebrow. "That's a big song, Caleb." "Elvis Presley, huh?" Caleb nodded. "Yes sir. My grandpa loved Elvis. He used to play his songs every day before he passed away." His voice trembled slightly on the last words, and Simon's expression softened just a little. "All right, Caleb," Simon said gently. "Let's hear what you've got." The lights dimmed. A soft guitar intro filled the theater. Caleb closed his eyes. For a second, you could almost feel his nervousness in the air, the heavy silence of thousands of people waiting, watching, judging. Then, he opened his mouth. "Wise men say," the moment those words came out, the crowd gasped. It wasn't just a voice, it was a voice soaked in soul, warmth, and pain. His tone was pure velvet, his phrasing mature beyond his years. He sang like someone who had lived through heartbreak and love, even though he was just a boy. Simon blinked, visibly moved. Lewis whispered something to Michelle, who had her hand over her heart. The camera zoomed in on Caleb's face, eyes closed, eyebrows slightly furrowed, completely lost in the moment. He sang each line as if speaking directly to his late grandfather, as if the song was a conversation between heaven and earth. "But I can't help falling in love with you." The audience erupted into applause halfway through, but Caleb didn't stop. He sang with trembling passion, holding the microphone like it was his lifeline. By the final chorus, even the judges were no longer just judges, they were witnesses to something sacred. As the last note hung in the air, the room fell silent again. Then suddenly, thunderous applause. The audience jumped to their feet, clapping, cheering, crying. Even the backstage crew had tears in their eyes. Caleb opened his eyes, shocked. His lips trembled as he looked out and saw everyone standing for him. He smiled shyly, then covered his mouth, trying to hold back tears. Simon was the last to stand. Slowly, he rose from his seat and clapped, not his usual polite, 2-second clap, but a long, emotional standing ovation. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than usual. "Caleb," he said, "I've been judging shows like this for many years. And I've heard a lot of versions of that song. But I've never, ever, heard someone your age sing it with that much heart. That wasn't just singing, that was storytelling. That was love." The audience cheered louder. Caleb's mother, standing backstage, was crying uncontrollably, her hands clasped together as if praying. Lewis leaned in. You remind me why we do this show, he said. You made us all remember that music isn't about fame, it's about feeling. Michelle wiped her tears. I didn't expect to cry tonight, she said with a laugh, but you did it. That was absolutely beautiful. Denise nodded. It was perfect, she said simply. Simon leaned forward again, looking directly at the boy. You have something very rare, Caleb. You're not trying to sound like Elvis, you feel like him. You sing from your soul. And I'll be honest with you, I think your grandpa was right there with you tonight. At that, Caleb broke down in tears. He covered his face as the crowd chanted his name. The golden buzzer moment hadn't happened yet, but you could feel the energy building. Simon looked at the other judges, and without another word, he reached forward and slammed the golden buzzer. Golden confetti exploded across the stage as the audience screamed in joy. Caleb dropped to his knees, overwhelmed, sobbing uncontrollably. His mother ran onto the stage, hugging him tightly as confetti rained around them. Simon walked up to the stage, something he rarely did, and put a hand on Caleb's shoulder. That, Simon said quietly, was one of the best auditions I've ever seen. The clip went viral overnight. Within 24 hours, it had over 20 million views on YouTube. Comments flooded in from around the world. I'm crying, one wrote. That boy didn't just sing Elvis, he channeled him. Another said, this is why we love the Philippines. So much heart, so much soul. But behind the viral fame was a deeper story, one that not many knew. Caleb wasn't just a boy with a good voice. He was a boy who had faced more than most adults ever will. Caleb's mother, Maria, had moved to Ireland when he was just 5 years old, leaving him behind in the Philippines so she could work and send money home. For years, Caleb lived with his grandparents in a small village outside Manila. His grandfather, Ernesto, was a tricycle driver who barely made enough to get by, but he always found joy in music. Every night, he'd take out his old radio, tune it to the oldies channel, and play Elvis songs. Caleb would sit beside him, listening. One day, you'll sing like him, Ernesto would say, laughing. Caleb would smile shyly and hum along. When Ernesto passed away after a sudden illness, Caleb stopped singing for months. He felt like the music had gone with his grandfather. It wasn't until Maria finally managed to bring him to Ireland that he started singing again. But this time, it wasn't for fun, it was for memory. For love, he would sing Elvis songs in his small bedroom, sometimes softly, sometimes with tears streaming down his face. His mother would hear him and quietly stand outside his door, crying. When she saw an audition announcement for Ireland's Got Talent, she encouraged him. Your Lolo would want you to sing, she said. And now, here he was, standing under the golden confetti, his dream coming true. In the weeks that followed, Caleb's life changed overnight. He was invited on talk shows, newspapers wanted to interview him, and thousands of fans sent letters from all over the world. But despite the fame, Caleb stayed humble. I just wanted my grandpa to be proud of me, he would say in every interview. When the semifinals arrived, the pressure was intense. The media hyped him as the Elvis boy. But Caleb wanted to do something different. He didn't want to just repeat what he did. He wanted to tell a story again, his own. He chose a medley of Elvis songs, but he changed the arrangement, starting with Love Me Tender, and blending it into If I Can Dream. It was risky, but when he sang, every note carried raw power. The judges were mesmerized. Simon said afterward, every time you sing, Caleb, you make the world stop for 3 minutes. That's what true artists do. The final was electric. The entire arena was packed. People had traveled from all over Ireland, even from the Philippines, to watch him live. When Caleb stepped out for the last time, he wore a simple white shirt and jeans, with a small pendant around his neck, his grandfather's. He looked out at the audience, then at Simon, and said softly, this song is for my grandpa, for my mom, and for everyone who believes dreams can come true. Then the piano began. The song was, You'll Never Walk Alone. His voice soared. He started softly, his tone angelic, but by the final chorus, it grew into something powerful and divine. The entire audience stood up before he even finished. Simon wiped his eyes, trying to hide his tears behind his hand. When it was over, there was nothing but applause. People hugged strangers, crying. Even the host had to turn away for a moment to collect himself. Simon stood up, walked to the stage again, and hugged Caleb. You just reminded me, he said emotionally, that music is supposed to heal. And tonight, you healed us all. Caleb didn't win the show that season, but in many ways, he won something far greater. The world's heart. He was invited to perform on Britain's Got Talent, The Champions, and later on, America's Got Talent, All Stars. His viral videos were viewed by hundreds of millions. Elvis Presley's own estate even sent a message of admiration, saying, "Elvis would have loved this boy." Years later, when asked what he remembered most from that night, Caleb said, "When I looked up during the golden buzzer, I felt like my grandpa was smiling down from heaven." He continued to sing, not for fame, but for purpose. He started a foundation for underprivileged children in the Philippines who loved music but couldn't afford instruments. "Music saved me," he said once in an interview. "So I want to help it save others too." Even Simon kept in touch. During one of his later shows, Simon mentioned Caleb again, saying, "Every few years, someone comes along who reminds me why I started this. That boy from the Philippines, he was one of them." And that's what makes this story unforgettable. A boy who came from humble beginnings, carrying his grandfather's love and Elvis's spirit, walked onto a foreign stage, scared but brave, and ended up touching millions of hearts. It wasn't just his voice. It was his heart. It was the truth behind every note. Some say legends are born once in a generation. But sometimes, legends are reborn, in the voice of a young boy who just wanted to sing for someone he loved. So the next time you hear, "Can't Help Falling in Love," remember Caleb, the little boy from the Philippines who made the world fall in love with him, note by note, tear by tear. Because sometimes, the smallest voices make the biggest echoes. And that night in Dublin, as the golden confetti fell, the world heard one of those echoes, pure, timeless, and unforgettable. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who believes in the power of dreams, music, and love. Because that's what this channel is all about, stories that remind us that kindness, courage, and heart will always shine brighter than fame. And remember, no matter where you come from, no matter how small you feel, one song, one act of courage, can change everything. This was Caleb's story, and maybe, it's a reminder that yours could be next.